Creation, Book of Portals, Chapter 5. The Narlip spoke quickly and precisely.
For the duration of our existence on Narleo, we have been in a vacuum of sorts. Narleo, unlike Earth, has been secluded without contact with much of the galaxies around us. Where Earth has other life-inhabited planets surrounding it, many of which have landed and even intermingled with the human species, our planet has not been so fortunate. By no means does our lack of integration make us weak, but unfortunately, it does leave us vulnerable. For our survival, we have been routinely making contact with other life forms, learning their ways, understanding their technologies, and studying their habits. Humans are simply one of many species that we have encountered. Along the way, we have grown a lot as a species. We have fortified our defenses, bringing much of our own society into the future. In exchange, the populations we have contacted have benefited from us through contributions from our own collection of knowledge and technology.
As the Narlip spoke, images were flashed through her mind of the early development of Narleo, no doubt projected there by the creature. It stood before her, just as frightening as earlier, but somehow she got used to it. The forced friendly tone still unnerved her, though. As the Narlip talked about the collection of knowledge, an image of a giant futuristic-looking library flashed into her mind.
Wait, what is that?
The Narlip flicked its wrist to the side to project the photo from her mind into the space between them. It was an image of a holographic futuristic library. Instead of the usual library she was used to back home, with their white pillars and woodwork, the structure of this library looked as if it were completely chrome.
It is our main sector containing a collection of tomes, books, scrolls, tablets, and otherwise bound knowledge and utensils gathered from across the universe. We do not like waste. So instead of keeping the physical versions, we keep the scanned versions here.
Can you pick them up, or are they all holographic?
The Narlip made a sound that could only be classified as a laugh. The creature then proceeded to flick its wrist again, which made the image between them larger. The creature began swiping at the image, shuffling through the hundreds of thousands of pieces in the library collection.
What would a human mind like yours be interested in? The rise and fall of Atlantis? The ancient journals on teleportation? Top secret CIA documents? How about crazy internet conspiracy theories proven to be true? Or even better, would you like to read studies on how your government poisons and controls its people? No. That is probably a bit too much to handle right now, given the circumstances. I swear, human politics is just as fascinating as the True Housewives of Minnesota. Well, it is just as realistic.
I want a book about you.
The Narlip stopped scrolling. It beamed its beady eyes directly at her, expressionless. She stared straight back, ignoring the teeth, ignoring the claws. Her thoughts were clear.
Pardon?
She knew the Narlip heard her, but she spoke again plainly.
I want a book about you, your culture.
Anything you need to know, you can just ask.
I know, but
She trailed off. Though the other books sounded interesting, she didn't think any of them would help her now, though she knew her uncle would have been elated to know she read a book about Atlantis. He used to tell her so many stories about it, and now, for the first time in her life, she started to think they might actually be true. The creature continued scrolling. It was still searching, faster now. The titles in the vast collection of information flew by in a blur. As the Nolub searched, she looked at the floating light sources above her. She briefly wondered what powered them. Her chest had that empty feeling again. The Nolub stopped, satisfied. It zoomed in on a book, and without hesitation, it reached into the image to grab onto it. Startled, she leaned back, wary that the creature's clawed hand would come out the other side of the image. It didn't. Instead, the creature grabbed a holographic book and pulled it out, handing the book to her. Hesitant, she touched the book, shocked at the feel. It felt real. Though she could see her hands through it, the weight of the book in her hands was heavy. She grasped at the cover and opened it. Suddenly, the book's pages became solid, almost like paper. She could read the contents easily. The title of the book, Uncovering Narleo. There was no author.
It was written by a human. He was one of the only to show interest in Narlean culture. Most only care about their own.
What happened to him?
He died.
She sensed something was off in the simplicity of the answer, but she didn't draw attention to it. The room felt cold, though there was no draft. She stayed silent as the creature continued scrolling through the collection.
How were you able to pull the book from there?
This is a portal. The library exists on our home planet. We access it and add to it through the use of portals. It is how we have learned to make contact with so many worlds.
Can I try?
The Nolub looked at her again, tilting its head. The stare of its small eyes felt too personal, as if it could see straight through her. Instead of answering, the Nolub changed the subject.
You asked what we wanted from you. We want your knowledge. Because we are a species that is ever evolving, we find each and every contact with other civilizations a gold mine. Your unique scientific background makes you valuable to us.
So you want my help. What's in it for me?
The Nolub's stare was back, this time more piercing than before. She felt the weight of each second of silence as she stared back. The Nolub responded by changing the subject again.
An American astronaut found floating alone through the great expanse. We do not find many humans in that predicament. Usually, we abduct them.
The last sentence was said in a way that lacked a friendly tone. It was almost menacing in its delivery. Suddenly, she found herself preferring the forced friendliness. Sensing her discomfort, the Nolub spread its mouth into a shape that could only be described as a smile.
I am joking. It was an attempt to be funny, though I must admit that K1 is much better at it than I am.
No, it was funny. Just unexpected.
Humans are not the only ones with a sense of humor, you know.
No, I get it. Just the situation is a little...
The creature blinked, possibly for the first time since entering the room. It closed the portal to the library. They were facing each other in silence.
I apologize,
The Nolub said plainly. It was almost sincere. Almost. You don't have to.
Already done.
Well, I wasn't out there floating on purpose. I mean, I was more so pushed off the station by a colleague.
Another American?
No, actually. A Canadian.
Wow.
Right?
They both laughed, their collective discomfort melting slightly.
So I wasn't actually trying to be abducted.
Rescued?
Right. Rescued. I shouldn't have been out there at all.
The Narlip fell quiet. The silence in the room screamed. Then the creature twisted its wrist. Another blank screen popped up between them. After swiping on it, the creature brought up a broadcast news channel from Earth. WSTV News 4. Through the screen, she saw an image of her face projected onto a TV. The photo had been taken for her ID when she first entered the astronaut program at NASA. Below the image of her face was a banner that read, "Missing astronaut, 5 months later."
It's been 5 months already? It felt like only a day.
Your body took a while to recover.
She wanted to ask more about her recovery, but was distracted by the program. On the screen, an anchor was introducing the Russian astronaut. She felt her heartbeat speed as she saw his face appear. She balled her hand into a fist, and before she could stop herself, she threw a punch at the screen. Instead of going through, her fist made direct contact with the screen, which sent a shock through her hand. She recoiled in agony.
Not a portal.
Sorry,
She replied, embarrassed.
No need.
She held her hand. Her knuckles were throbbing. On the screen, the interview continued. The astronaut gave his condolences to her family. He spoke about how brave she was and about how he wished he could have done more to help her.
He covered up for the Canadian,
She said.
He helped him kill me.
You are not dead.
I might as well be.
The Narlip turned the screen off.
Turn it back on,
It is of no use.
please.
The Narlip turned the screen back on. This time, her mother was speaking. She was crying. The Canadian astronaut stood next to her mom, draping his arm across her shoulders, comforting her.
Turn it off.
The Narlip complied, leaving them both in an uncomfortable silence again. She continued rubbing her hand. Noticing this, the Narlip reached out to her. Instead of pulling back, she offered her injured hand out to the Narlip. The Narlip's claw touched her hand, instantly making it numb. She breathed a sigh of relief.
Thank you.
I feel bad for you, you know. It has got to be difficult, knowing the only comfort to your family is the person who aided in your disappearance. Even if you are not dead, it has got to sting a bit.
She just looked at the Narlip.
You can feel?
Your prejudice is showing. No, but we do not need feelings to understand empathy.
Sorry. So are you going to let me go home?
Before the Narlip answered, a red light lit up on its wrist. An alert.
We are here.
Here?
We have landed. We are home.
She wondered what her uncle would have thought of her circumstances. On one hand, she could practically sense his hypothetical excitement in knowing he was telling the truth about the existence of aliens. On the other, she knew the rational side of him, even if small, would be covertly looking for a way out. So that is what she prepared herself to do. Not long after landing, the Narlip left her behind in the medical room. It seemed to be about an hour ago, but she knew nothing about how time existed there, galaxies away from Earth, if it existed. While she was alone, she opened the book she was given and began poring over passages the human wrote. Most of the stuff she found was basic: bodily functions, ancient Narlip history, the works. What she needed to know about was the portals. She knew that the screen the Narlip showed her had the capability of becoming a portal, but she didn't know how. A portal meant she could possibly use it to get home. She scanned the pages as if her life depended on it, scouring for knowledge she could use. While flipping through the pages for keywords that stood out, she stumbled across a passage entitled Wristbands. She stopped. She briefly remembered how both K1 and the other Narlip flicked their wrists in similar motions, but were able to make different functions occur. She opened to the passage, which read, "In their great history of trading and extracting information from budding and established civilizations, Narlips have collected various technologies and used them to construct a wristband called the Portalis. The Portalis was invented with the ability to manipulate frequency in order to..." The rest of the passage was marked out. She searched through the other passages in the book looking for more information about the wristbands. Nothing. She threw the book in frustration. It landed in the corner, slamming shut and changing back to its holographic form. She was back at her starting point. Behind her, an opening appeared. She could feel something staring at her, so she turned around. When she did, she met the face of the first Narlip she encountered, K1. It was still in the same form as before, tall, smooth, and shining in iridescent blue. Slightly comforted, she relaxed a bit.
"Hello again,"
it said in its familiar, monotone voice. She nodded at the Narlip and moved from the bed to pick the book up off the floor. The Narlip continued,
"I have been assigned to show you around. Follow me."
She was hesitant as she approached the Narlip. For the first time, she realized the opening wasn't a door. It was a portal. And though they told her she was in the medical ward, it suddenly seemed as if she had been imprisoned instead.
"Do not worry, you are free now. Well, considering the circumstances."
She stepped out of the door portal and into a metallic hallway. As she stepped out, she saw that it was lit up by the floating lights. She looked around, finally able to examine her new surroundings. No one else was in the corridor. It seemed as if it stretched for ages. "What do you mean, free?"
You were being studied. The Anyota did reports your vitals, your thoughts. We know your intentions.
So it's a spy. What else does this thing do?
Have you noticed you have not been hungry?
She stopped in her tracks. She didn't feel full, but she felt satisfied, like she had eaten just enough.
The suit takes care of that, and also your waist.
How?
Humans usually faint when they find out how.
She continued walking. So what was the result of me being studied?
You passed.
What if I had failed?
Failing would have resulted in the immediate dismissal to the confinement center.
It spoke in a plain, monotone manner. In the casual way in which it mentioned confinement made her uncomfortable. She wondered what she had to do to be sent there. The corridor they walked down led to a wall, and the Narlip lifted its wrist to reveal another portal opening in front of them. Her eyes drifted to the Narlip's wristband. She made a mental note of the design before lowering her head in embarrassment. She remembered they could sense her intentions. The Narlip noticed, chuckling softly.
No need to be embarrassed. We expect you to want to escape. It would be far more alarming otherwise. Even we are quite fond of our planet and experience semblances of sorrow when away on our travels. There is no need to be punished for that.
It stepped through the portal, making way for her to follow. They both entered a room bare of all color but gray. The lights in there were dim.
You might be able to open your own portal in due time.
But
We know your intentions at all times.
Its voice seemed stern. Sure, it was frightening. Betraying her, her heartbeat sped up. Suddenly, she realized she was trapped in a small room with no means of escape. It made direct eye contact with her.
Your want to escape tells us you have ambition. Once you see what we have to offer, however, you would not want to leave anyway.
The Narlip flicked its wrist, opening a portal to the library again. For a few moments, it swiped at the screen, searching. She wondered what it could be looking for now. The Narlip stopped, suddenly reaching through the screen. It pulled out a large, thin, holographic book. The Narlip handed it to her. As she opened the cover, she discovered the pages inside were slightly rough and completely blank. The Narlip then handed her a holographic box set of pencils. She stared silently at the items. It had given her a sketchbook with a matching set of art pencils. And with that, the Narlip twisted its wrist, and the wristband once again opened up a portal in the wall in front of her. Making direct physical contact with her for the first time, the Narlip pushed her out of the portal and onto the planet. Hello again, my name is Michaela Simone Mack, author and narrator of Creation, Book of Portals. I would like to say if you have stayed along with me this entire time, thank you so much for listening. We are halfway through this season. Isn't that so exciting? So that means that we only have 5 more episodes after this episode airs. That means 5 more weeks to figure out how this story develops. Again, thank you so much for following along. It would greatly benefit me if you were to comment, like, subscribe, follow, and also share with friends that you think may be interested in this story. We are going on a fun and exciting ride, and I can't wait to see how you react to the last 5 chapters. In any case, as always, there are new episodes airing every single Friday. Speak to you again next Friday with Book of Portals Part 6. Bye-bye.